we're really thrilled this evening. We have a very special person. We have Beth Rady, who's going to be giving the talk tonight, and she's a faculty member at St. John the 23rd. How many of you go to St. John the 23rd? Anybody in here? Yeah? Okay, well, some of you may know Miss Beth. So we're really thrilled to have her. She's a mother of 4, and she's a fantastic person. So I'm going to give the mic now to Miss Beth Rady.
Thank you, Miss Cindy Smolik. Okay, we're going to play a little game, first and foremost, all right? This is called This or That. I was going to have you stand up. I was thinking I was going to be in the Family Center or the youth building, and I'm not. I'm in church. And so instead of us getting up and going, and wreaking havoc here, we're just going to do it with hands. And everybody needs to participate. The thing I'm asking from you is your honesty. You need to be straight up honest. When we're not honest, that's when we run into issues. That's when we run into problems. That's when we run into turmoil, all that. So I'm asking you to be straight up with me. Okay, this or that. Photos or videos. If you are someone who would rather have photos, I want you to point to that side, this side. If you're someone who would rather take videos, point to that side. So photos or videos. Everybody participate. Not everyone's. Get that hand in the air and let me see it. I want to see it. Don't be shy. Everyone playing? Everyone? Some are pointing straight up. Okay, put your hands down. Next one is take a friend on a family vacation, or you go with your friend on their family vacation. So take a friend on your family vacation, or you go with a friend on their family vacation. Let me see it. Okay, put your hands down. Next thing is, would you rather get a social media message or a text message, or send a social media message or text message? Social media or text? Well, I'm surprised. I thought more people would do social media, but we got a lot of texters. Okay, cool. Here's the next one. Would you rather be part of a group hangout, like hanging out with group friends, or one-on-one? With like maybe your bestie. Group, hang out with your group, or hang out with your bestie. Oh, I see a little maroon shirt. Thanks very much. Got you. Okay, make sure. I see some people looking up, not participating, but we'll get to that. Would you rather have, let's say, store-bought or homemade? Something store-bought or something homemade? Okay, so let's say, and I'm going to put your hands down. Let me just tell you this. In my family, we have just started doing this with my nieces and my nephews. They choose names. And for Christmas, they have to get something that's either thrifted or homemade. And some of you may go, thrift? Homemade? You kidding me? We have more fun with the thrifting and homemade stuff than store-bought stuff. So let's think of it in that way. So would you rather have something store-bought or something homemade? Let me see it. Everybody. Store-bought or homemade? Yeah, homemade, kids, right? Me too. Not saying store-bought's bad. It's not bad. I'm kind of a homemade girl myself. Okay, here's the next one. Roller coasters or water slides? I'm total roller coasters. I could care less to go on another water slide. Do I like them? Heck yeah. Love roller coasters. Okay, raise those hands higher because this is like one of my favorite roller coasters. Okay. Are you a person that believes that the glass is half full or the glass is half empty? Half full, half empty. So are you optimistic and look at things in a positive way? Or are you pessimistic and look at things like, it's never going to work out? Okay, let me see them higher. I want to see. This is important. Okay, put your hand down. God exists. God doesn't exist. Or you don't know. God exists, God doesn't exist, or you don't know. Okay, put your hand down. When you made that last choice about God existing, God not existing, or you're not really sure, ask yourself, did I answer honestly? Did I answer honestly? Or did I answer based on the peer pressure of my friends? Like, you might be one who's sitting there and going, no, I really don't believe God exists. But you're thinking, in front of all my friends, boy, I better say God exists because I don't want to deal with the repercussions of that after. You know, my parent may be sitting back there and you're going to be like, you don't believe in God? Oh, my gosh, right? Or if you don't know, you put your hand up there maybe kind of going, I don't know if anyone can see me, but I'm just going to go like that. So ask yourself, when you answered that last question, did you do it because that's what you were honestly saying, or did you do it because of peer pressure? All right? So think about that. Our life is all about choices. Every single one of you in here is no different than me, and I am no different than you. Choices that you have to make on a daily basis as a young adult were choices I had to make on a daily basis as a young adult. Nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed is maybe styles of dress, maybe the way that people look at things. The life of technology has changed so much since I was your age. But as far as choices, that has not changed. Our whole life is going to be choices, and we make choices every single day. Our choices are either going to be good or they're going to be bad. Our choices are going to be right or our choices are going to be wrong. We're going to choose to love or we're going to choose to hate. So you see where I'm going? It's one or the other. There are a lot of people that kind of ride that middle section going, don't know if I really want to love, don't think I want to hate. I'm just going to ride it in the middle. Just ride it in the middle. Well, I want you to understand this and know this. Jesus had a choice too. And you're like, what? We were told he was the Son of God, that he just knew everything, he was perfect or whatever. You have to understand that Jesus is the Son of God. But when he came down here and took on flesh, he also had a free will. And you're going to say, I don't believe it. So let me read it from sacred scripture, okay? This is from Matthew, and this is chapter 26, verse 39. And I'm going to hear the choice he had to make. And you're going to say, didn't know that, okay? Matthew chapter 26, verse 39. And going a little farther, he fell on his face and prayed, my Father, if it be possible, let this chalice pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will it, but as you will it. So in the Garden of Gethsemane, he showed us how human he was. He showed us just how much he was like us. What he said was, oh my goodness, I am being asked to give my life, and I don't know if I can do it. And he says, Father, please, if you could take this chalice from me, take this chalice from me, meaning take this away from me. Don't let me go through this. But then he says, but not my will be done, but your will be done. And we know the rest of the story. He chooses to give his life. He did not have to choose to give his life. He did not have to die, but he chose to die. His Father brought him into this world because the world had gotten so bad that he said there needs to be something else. All throughout the Old Testament, oh my gosh, can you imagine living in the Old Testament and having God like speak to you in a burning bush or all this kind of stuff and have this close relationship with you that he did with those people in the Old Testament? He was there. The Israelites, he said, oh my gosh, you've been in bondage for hundreds and hundreds of years. I have heard your prayer and I'm going to release you. And they were like, thank you, God. He's heard our prayer. And then they wandered and they were like so happy because they were out of bondage. And then as they went a little further, they're like, okay, so this is good. We're out of bondage now, but we're a little hungry. Okay. So God said, okay, so I'm going to provide manna from heaven for you, and I'm going to provide water for you. And they're like, oh, this is the best ever, best ever. And as they went on and had more manna and more water, then all of a sudden they're like going, do you have something else? Like, we're kind of tired of manna and water, whatever. So what I'm trying to say is, even though God was so good to them and had this close relationship to them personally, they still groaned and complained. It was never good enough. It was never good enough. And he kept giving and giving and giving, and finally it came to a point that it just became so broken that he finally had to say, then I will give you the ultimate sacrifice. I will send my son. But Jesus, right here in Matthew chapter 6, verse 39, said, oh, if you can spare me from this, Lord, that would be awesome. But it's not going to be my will. That's what my will would want, but let your will be done. And it was. Okay? So just know that Jesus had a choice. And what choice did he make? And when he made that choice, do you know that you were a part of that choice? You, each one of you here, was a part of that choice. Because what he saw flash before him were all of our lives. All of our lives flashed before him. Anybody who existed, anybody who exists now and will exist, all those lives flashed before him. And he was like, I need to do this. And what did he do? We're going to look at John chapter 10, verses 10 and 11. And this is what Jesus did. And this is what you and I meant to him. And it says right here, I came that they, you and I, may have life and have it abundantly. I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. So that is how much you are loved, all right? That's how much you are loved. That's how much Jesus loved you, was that he was the good shepherd who laid his life down for you. It was a choice that he made. And he made that choice so that the gates of heaven could be open, so that one day when we die, that we could return to the Father in heaven. That is what he did for you. That's his gift to you. Now, the choices you have in your life are going to bring about peace, or they're going to bring conflict. They're going to bring happiness or sadness. They're going to bring joy or frustration. Ask yourself, how do you make the right choice? How do you know what choice is the best choice? And when you have to make that choice, who do you turn to in making that choice? Do you turn to parents? Do you turn to friends? Teachers? Strangers? When you make those hard life choices, which could be life or death, which could bring that happiness or sadness, which could bring hope or despair, who do you turn to? Hi, my name is Beth. If you were in an AA meeting or in an Al-Anon meeting, you would have responded, hi, Beth. And then you would have sat in your chair for however long. I would want to be up there to tell you my story, to tell you my feelings, to tell you everything that I needed to say. And you don't respond back. You may sit there and say, oh, I just want to tell her this. It'll make her feel so much better. Oh, I want to give her my opinion. It'll make her feel so much better. Oh, I need to, pray with her or do whatever. It will make her feel so much better. The first time I went to Al-Anon, and if you don't know what Al-Anon is a group for those who have an alcoholic, an addict in their life. My addict is my husband. He's an alcohol addict. And I just found out that now he's turned to marijuana in addition to that. And so the first time I went there, I said, hi, my name is Beth. And they're like, hi, Beth. And then I just burst into tears. And I couldn't say anything else. Because at that moment, for the first time in my life, I knew they knew exactly how I felt, what I was going through. I didn't have to say anything, not a word, and I knew they understood. That was the journey on trying to figure out how I was going to get through life with 4 small children, 3 of those who have never known a sober father in their life. Get through life in raising those 4 kids so that they were happy, that they felt safe, that they were loved, and that they loved the very man who chose alcohol over them. That was the first part of my journey. Hi, I'm Beth, and then burst into tears. Some of you may look at your life and say, oh gosh, Miss Beth, I didn't know that about you. You know, for those of you that know me, I didn't know that you had an alcoholic husband. Over 25 years, probably closer to 28 years. We've been married 31 years. He's been an alcoholic that long. I'm amazed, and by the grace of God, he's still living because he abuses it heavily. It has changed him from what he used to be, a very handsome man, into someone, I'm 2 years older than he is. Right now, when you look at him, he probably looks 10 to 15 years older than I do. It has made his skin red, bumpy, whatever. I mean, it has changed him physically. It has changed him chemically. It has changed him emotionally. It has changed him so much. And some of you sitting in these pews today, you're like going, I get it. I get it. Because you may have a parent who's an addict. And I don't care if it's drugs. I don't care if it's food. I don't care if it's anger. Addiction is addiction. It's their way of coping. It's their way of coping. And you may say, oh my gosh, she just really seems so happy. Like, how can she be so happy when she has an addict for a husband? And a lot of people would say that to me. They would say, you know, Miss Beth, gosh, you are always so happy. You're the happiest person I know, and stuff like that. Well, I'm going to tell you why I am so happy and why I'm so positive, because it was a choice I made. It was a choice I made. And the first choice that I made was to go to Al-Anon and try and surround myself with people who understood, and I did that. The second choice I made was and really the first choice was to try and raise very functional kids. So I went to Al-Anon. The second choice I made was to get me and my kids into counseling. And the third thing was to take the journey from my head to my heart. I'm number 5 of 7 children. I have 4 brothers and I have 2 sisters. I'm originally from Michigan. I grew up, if you've never seen the Brady Bunch, my family was the Brady Bunch, not only in numbers, but we are also the Brady Bunch in the way we were raised. I have a mother and father who I am so incredibly blessed to say that they still live today at the ages of 86 and 87, still in their home, still very healthy, doing really, really well. Incredible blessing, and I see that as a blessing every single day. So I was like the Brady Bunch. Did we fight? Heck yeah, Did we have fun? Yeah, we did. Did we eat? Yeah. So I had a great life, a really great life. I knew I was loved. I had a roof over my head. I had clothes on my back. My dad was just a school, and I'm not going to say just a school teacher because I'm a school teacher. My father was a school teacher. My mother worked in a bowling alley. We did not have a lot of money, but man, we seemed like we lived high off the hog. And that's because, again, we knew we were loved. We had parents who told us that they loved us every day. We had a roof over our head. We had clothes on our back and food on our table. And that's all we needed. We did get in trouble. Of course we did. We started our garage on fire. And in the time my mom and dad went to the grocery store, started the garage on fire, sanded it down, repainted it. The fire department came and everything was all cleaned up, repainted, whatever. They had no clue. But my brothers told them after. So, whatever. But we had fun. We lived. So my life, great life. Did I have problems, turmoils, troubles? Yeah, I did. But I want you to also know, too, that I was brought into this world a very happy little infant. I have been joyful and happy my whole entire life. I have felt since about the age of 5 that I literally was put on this earth to make people happy. I have always felt that my whole life. I knew that in first grade, after winning a talent show, that I wanted to be a teacher and a mother, and I am. So really, you could look at my life and say, she is living the dream, and I am. I am living the dream. My job at SJ23 isn't even a job. I will tell my choir, oh my gosh, I don't even work a day in my life. I don't work a day in my life because I love what I do. My relationship with God has always been so close. I've always had an incredibly close relationship with God. I had an encounter when I was 5. My sisters were in a bunk bed, and I was in a single bed, and I was laying down, and all of a sudden I heard this voice say, Beth, Beth. And I woke up, and I was like, it's kind of, where it said, wake up. And I woke up, and all of a sudden I was thinking, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm on the side of my bed, literally stuck to the side of my bed. I'm looking at the wall on the side of my bed, and I just thought to myself, I should be on the floor. And then I heard the voice say, Beth, Beth, you're falling out of bed, but don't worry, I have you. And whatever force it was rolled me back up into my bed. And I never feared it. I always felt like, oh, thanks. Okay, good night. I have always had that kind of relationship with God. I love God so much, so much. Does that mean I'm perfect? No. Does that mean that I'm not a sinner? No. Hi, I'm Beth. I'm a sinner. We all are, because that's what makes us human. But I've always loved God very much. I have never challenged God. I would never leave God. I have always been Catholic, cradle Catholic from birth. I will never leave the church. I have never ever wanted to leave the church. I had a group of friends who were not Catholic that would take me on their trips, took me to New York and stuff like this and whatever, and tried to pull me into their faith or whatever it was. And I went, and it was wonderful, and I had fun, but I would never leave the church. I would never leave the church. I've always been so connected to the church because of my relationship with God. I just believed it. Why did I believe it? Well, my mom and dad raised me that way. They instilled a really good Catholic value. We prayed together as a family. We did this really, really, quite great things that stick with me today. But as I said, was I perfect? No. I could sit here and tell you some stories. You'd be like, you are a little rebel, aren't you? And I'd be like, oh, yeah. And for those that know me, sometimes there's that little sneaky side to me. Get away with whatever I can, okay? So don't think just because that I, loved God so much and had such a great family life, like, okay, so what could happen to you? Okay, the first big thing was the alcoholism. So I had a choice to make, and I had to take this journey from my head to my heart, because I had to say to myself, okay, so who can I turn to? So I had these people in Al-Anon, and then all of a sudden I started thinking, I was babysitting at my church there for little kids, for these mommies that were going to this familia group, and they would say, Beth, you should not be the babysitter. You should be in this class with us. Come on. And I'm like, no, I'm good. You girls are way too holy for me. Like, I don't even compare. And I would see myself, like, I'd look at these women and be like, I could never be that. I could never be that, And so I babysat their kids, and then they would go do familia and always come back down saying, you need to join us. And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't, So anyways, kind of that, like you, people tell you what to do, and you're like, I don't have to do that. I'm not going to do it. It's totally me too. So I was like, yeah, no. But then all of a sudden I started thinking, as times got harder and harder, and it wasn't until one day that my husband did something that made me so angry that I took a cookie sheet and flung it across the room. And I was so angry, and I don't think I've ever been that angry in my life. And all of a sudden I realized the very person that I said that I would love for the rest of my life, I hated. I would pray, dear God, Paul's going to Houston. He's going to ride the corporate jet. So if it could crash today, that would be really great. Amen. And you're going to think, you really did pray that? I did. Because alcoholism, I allowed his alcoholism to make me so bitter and so angry to a point where I hated him, that to even pray for him to die, I was good with. And I knew that God wouldn't judge me. And I did. And I would go into confession, and I'd say, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. My last confession was 3 days ago. And he'd be like, okay, what did you do now? And I'm like, I prayed that my husband would die. And he would just laugh at me. But what the heck? Really? But he would laugh at me because he's just like, oh, you small little child. When we look at who God the Father is and who we are to him, we're like his little kids. So my priest would look at me like I was this little kid, like, you silly little kid, what are you doing? Okay, let's talk about it. And so we would, And it was so funny because when we would talk about this hatred, this anger and stuff, and what I was going to do with it. Two of probably my favorite priests that God literally said, I know she loves me. I'm going to help her. I'm going to stick these two priests in her life, and they're going to give her this message. And, you know, like, I know God's up there going, come on, they're going to give her the message. Watch what she does, okay? So it is Monsignor Sweeney. This is when I was in Utah, and Father Pat. Father Pat was probably this tall, probably this big. If I squeezed him too hard, I probably could break him. So he was at a monastery, so cute. And so I would go get spiritual direction from him, and I'd even take my little kids to get spiritual direction too, because I thought I got to give them any tool that I can. So I'd go to him, and I'd go to Monsignor Sweeney. And I remember that I would say, bless me, Father, for I've sinned. You know, my last confession was this. You know, please, Father, I am coming in here. All I want to hear in this confession is it's okay for me to divorce my husband. That's all I want to hear. If you're not going to say it, I'm out of here. And literally, you're thinking, is that what you said? Absolutely. That's exactly what I said. And if you know me, that's how I talk to God. That's, you know, and you may think, oh, that's so rude. No, I have such a great relationship with God that I'm going to speak to him like a child does, you know, to a papa, you know, and so I do. So I would go in there and say, just tell me I can get a divorce. Tell me it's okay at the Catholic Church for me to get a divorce, and I'll be happy, and then we will be good, and I'll still come back, but we're going to be good. And he would be like, oh, you need to love more. And I thought, I need to love more. I have loved enough. Like, I'm raising his kids. I'm cleaning that house. I'm cooking. I'm doing this and stuff like this, and I'm trying to be joyful. You know, I was angry. I don't want to be angry anymore, so now I'm on this road to where I'm coming back, and you're telling me I need to love more? Don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it. And I'd just be like, okay. And then Monsignor Sweeney would give me the penance, and he would say to me, what's Paul's favorite pie? And I'd be like, peach? And he's like, for your penance, you need to make him a pie. And I'm like, I don't want to make him a pie. He said, well, that's your penance. And if you want your sins to be forgiven, that's the action I'm asking you to do. Make him a pie. He says, and when you do that, come back and see me. So 2 days later, I made him a pie. And then the next day, I went to go see Monsignor Sweeney. He says, oh, you're back. You must have made him the pie. And I said, yeah. So then, you know, and stuff. And then we'd work through it again. You know, bless me, Father, for I've sinned, you know, whatever and stuff. And he would tell me again, you need to love more. You need to love more. For your penance this time, I want you to tell him each day for 1 week something nice about him. And I'm like, seriously? And he would say, I said, what do you want me to say to him, Father? And he would say, you could say, you look nice today, Paul. Thank you so much for, you know, getting out of bed and going to work for us so you could earn money to put a roof over our head. Thank you so much for being quiet this morning when you got up so you didn't wake me. And then he stopped, and I'm like, you have 4 more things you need to help me out with, so go for it. Because I was going to say whatever he said, it's exactly what I was going to say, but he didn't. He said, you have to come up with those on your own. And I kept thinking, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. But I kept continuing to do what he did, not liking it, but I continued to do. And then all of a sudden I saw this Father Valencia who wrote this book, this journey from your head to your heart, to make everything to kind of all come together. I'm telling you right now, standing before you, whatever you are going through, I'm going to be just like Monsignor Sweeney, and I'm going to be just like Father Pat. Love is the answer. Did it make my husband stop drinking? No. Did it make him stop being mean to me? No. Did it make him stop saying, you know, maybe not so nice things to my kids? No. It didn't stop anything on his end, but what it did for me was it brought me peace. It brought me joy. Because through this turmoil of my husband's alcoholism, I had 2 choices. I could be hopeful or I could live in despair. I could be joyful or I could be frustrated. I could love or I could hate. And in this turmoil, I chose to be joyful. I chose happiness. I chose to live, and I chose to love. part of that loving journey is what I call holy silence. I kind of dubbed that myself. That when I would sit there for an hour and a half and my husband would say mean and horrible things to me, I would literally sit there and say, holy silence, don't say anything. And I would look him in the eyes as he was saying whatever, and I would say, okay, Blessed Mother, if I'm supposed to hear anything, let me hear it so I can change what I need to change. But if the other is to tear me down or whatever, don't let me hear it. And I'd pray Hail Marys, and I'd look him in the eyes. And sometimes when he would do it, I would just say, Jesus, we're supposed to see you in others. I don't see you. And I always look at people's eyes because they say the eyes are the windows to the soul. Like if you look deep in people's eyes, you can see their soul. And so I would look at him and I would just be like, I don't see you. You know, maybe 2 hours later, I would be like, I do. I see you. And it's not that I had the gift to see Jesus, but what I could see was this sadness in my husband's eyes, because Jesus is in all of us, but my husband didn't realize that he was there. And I saw this sadness, and it was the first time that I actually had compassion for my alcoholic husband. Again, part of that journey from your head to your heart. And the reason why I say from your head to your heart, because here we go, should I, shouldn't I? No. Yes. Your heart is where God resides. He does not reside in your mind. When you are sitting there going, should I or shouldn't I, through your turmoil, that's where Satan exists, and he's trying to throw you off and take a different path or whatever, take his path or whatever. That throws you off. God is here. God's not a God of confusion. He is not a God of confusion. He knows exactly what he wants for you. In fact, you know what you want for you too. You know, when things happen and you have to make choices, deep down inside, you know what the right choice is. You may not make it, but you know what the right choice is, because your Creator who created you gave each and every one of us a heart. And on that heart, he wrote the indelible mark of love. Every single one of us has it. And that's why, subconsciously or whatever, we know what's right or wrong. We just may not make the right choice at the time, but we know. We know, and that no is God. That's what he gave to you. That yes, that no, to choose right, to choose good, to choose love, that choice through whatever you're going through is going to bring you peace, joy, and happiness. And for me, it is a peace, joy, and happiness that is not even of a human experience anymore. It is of a divine nature on my level. And that's why I can be so happy and stuff through this. But it is a choice that each one of you has through whatever difficult moments you have or are going through. It is a choice that you have to make. Who are you going to turn to? I chose to turn to God. I chose to turn to Jesus. I chose to turn to Mary. And what I got in return, as I said, the peace, joy, and happiness, I also got a whole new incredible family too. When I lived in Utah, I would do perpetual adoration, and I used to see one of my friends in there, and she would just do whatever, and I'm like going, she doesn't only love Jesus, she is in love with him. She doesn't only love Mary, she is in love with her. She doesn't only love God, she is in love with him. I want to be in love with them too. I want that. And I made a choice to seek it. That journey that I took, that journey that hopefully you will take or are taking, well, you are on the journey. It doesn't matter where you're at in the journey. You're all still taking this journey. That is a personal journey. Do not tell me the church didn't teach me that. My parents didn't teach me that. Don't tell me that. Because I'll say, you're right. Maybe when I went to CCD, I didn't hear that either. And maybe my mom and dad didn't tell me because maybe they didn't know that. This journey on this earth, through all this turmoil, trials, and tribulations that we're all going to go through, is a personal journey. It's not a group journey. It's a personal journey. Just like the Good Shepherd, Jesus is the Good Shepherd. When one of his sheep is lost, the shepherd does not say, okay, come on, all you little sheep. We're all going to go out there and look for that one little lost sheep. What the shepherd does is the shepherd leaves the 99 because he knows that they're safe. And he takes the personal journey, one-on-one journey to come find you. Okay? That's what a shepherd does. A shepherd will leave everyone, take that personal journey, and come find you. So now it's time for you to look within yourself and say, how am I going to deal with this life? How many of you have depression? Think about it. How many of you have anxiety? I've never seen more kids in the time that I've lived here in Katy, Texas, have anxiety. At our school, and you probably heard it throughout, we've had 2 suicides at our school. One from an actual student, I think it was about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years ago, who took her life. We just had another one of a sister whose younger sister just took her life 2 weeks ago. I'm not going to say they took their lives because they didn't have a relationship with God. But through their turmoil, through their sadness, through their depression or whatever they were going through, they didn't trust him enough. They didn't have enough faith in him to turn to him. Even if he was the only one that they felt that they had, they didn't trust enough. They didn't have faith enough to say, God, you got to get me through this. Because God would have gotten them through that. And some people may say, well, that was God's will. Suicide is not God's will. Suicide is not. Suicide is our will. We don't say, well, that was the way God had planned. No, suicide is our own choice. If I die from cancer, God knows when I'm going to die. That's a God thing, okay? If I get in an accident that it was someone else's fault, God knows. But suicide is not. That was a choice we made. And what gives me great hope and happiness for them is I know that when they met their Maker, that he hugged him and said, I wish you would have trusted me. I wish you would have had hope. But I'm here now for you. So kids, I'm telling you, to follow Christ is not easy. I'm not going to say, oh, it's so great, it's so wonderful. To follow Christ is the hardest journey you'll ever make. And you have to ask yourself, do I have the courage to do it? Do I have the courage to do? Do I have the courage to follow Jesus? Who was this Jesus? You know, I can't feel him, I can't touch him, I can't see him. Who is he? Okay, do we all breathe air? Yes. Can you see air? No. Can you touch air? No. Can you smell air? No. You can't do anything, but you rely on that air to keep you alive, because if you don't have it, you are dead. Same thing with Jesus. Why is it that we need to see him, touch him, do whatever that we need it? Are we doubting Thomases? Let it go. Just like air, he is there. It exists. Just because it's not to our senses as a human being, know that he is there. And you have to trust in that. You have to have faith in that. And in having faith in that, you have to have great hope in that. Because in having faith and hope in a creator who comes after us, the little lost sheep leaves everybody else behind to come see us. In this creator who is love himself, who literally saw your face in the Garden of Gethsemane when he said, oh, please take this. And boom, your face flashed before him and he said, not my will, but yours. That very God is the God that is going to get you through anything. It is a tough and courageous journey because the world says, God's everywhere. Be spiritual. To me, spiritual are the ones in the middle. Not really sure. Don't know if God exists, don't know, but I'm going to be spiritual and I'm going to be good. Spiritual doesn't get you through turmoil. God gets you through turmoil. Having hope in him gets you through turmoil. Because of my husband's alcoholism, I thanked him one day. I said, thank you so much for what you have done for me. And he looked at me like, sure. Because he was an alcoholic. And he also said this to me one time when I said to him, you made me so mad when I threw the cookie sheet. He goes, I didn't make you mad. You chose that. And I was like, he's right. I did choose to be angry. I didn't have to choose that. But because of his drinking, I chose to live. I chose to be happy. I chose to love the one I hated. I chose to raise my kids to be the happiest kids so no one would know that their daddy was an alcoholic. I chose to love. I chose to teach my children to love the very man who chose alcohol over them. And to this day, all 4 of them have a relationship with their dad. May not be as close as what some have, but they love him and they respect him. I chose these things, and they were good. But the only way that I could choose any and all of these is because I chose to turn to God to get me through that. So whatever you're going through, anxiety, depression, peer pressure, identity issues, sexual issues, maybe you're an addict, or maybe you have a family member or a friend who's an addict. So many things, so many things. First and foremost, know that there are several out there like you. You're not the only one. And second of all, remember that you have a God who loves you, because he told us in John's gospel, I will be with you to the end of time. He did not say, I'm going to sit on my throne. I'm going to watch you from afar. He said, I will be with you to the end of time. Let me carry your burdens. You still need to do the walk. You still need to do the work, but let him carry the burdens. So whatever it is you're going through, whatever turmoil you have in your life, and we all have it, what are you going to do? Who do you choose? Who do you choose? Thank you. Oh, man. Okay. Yeah, right. One of them. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, Beth, for your beautiful honesty, for your vulnerability, for your openness. Guys, when we ask Beth to come and talk to y'all, when we ask anyone to come talk to you, we don't tell people what they have to share, that they have to expose the depths of who they are, that they even have to open up and say, hey, this is what's going on in my life. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be real. I'm going to be raw. When they choose to do that on their own, I think everyone in this room was somehow blessed by what Beth just shared. But just know like it's a real honor that Beth was willing to open up to you. And so you're not just like kids to us. The fact that she's trusting you with a bit of her story, with a piece of her heart. Because sometimes speakers come up and they'll tell you about how their life was really terrible, and then they met Jesus and now everything's better. But every now and then you get someone's story like Beth's that's like it's still unraveling. Like she's still in it. She's still in the thick of it. And honestly, those are the best stories. Because when we look in Scripture, we see so many people who were like still in the thick of it, and there was no beautiful resolution or no pretty bow at the end, and like they lived happily ever after. Like they were still figuring stuff out. Like Peter denied Jesus 3 times, right up into Jesus' death. Like he was still after like following him all this time, he was still figuring it out. And so I think there's a great beauty in that, and we would ask that you really take that in, and hopefully you walk away with a message. Now, I know she shared, I just want to touch on, I know she shared some really heavy things, so I want to acknowledge that, like suicide, depression, anxiety, addiction, whether you're the addict in the family or you have a parent who's an addict, or maybe you're just now realizing that maybe you have a problem because you've tried to stop watching pornography every day and you can't stop, and you just can't stop. Like maybe you're starting to realize maybe I am having a problem. Maybe you've experimented with drugs or alcohol and you realize I can't stop going back to that. And so I want to speak to that and just say, like, the church is here for you. The church never left Beth in the midst of her craziness. The church didn't leave me, okay? For the record, all right, I had my first drug overdose when I was 15. By the age of 18, I ended up in rehab. And then for 10 years, I was going in and out of AA meetings trying to get sober, and I couldn't. But right now, I'm here to tell you that February 22nd of 2016 was actually the last time I ever used drugs or alcohol, and so I was able to get clean. Okay, but it was a long journey, and so I'm sharing this to say, like, don't think that you have to stop coming to church as you figure out your messy life, or think that, like, you can't approach him because you're still broken, or because your family's broken, or because you have a dad who bailed on you, or because you have a dad who puts his hands on you, like a mom who's emotionally absent. Whatever your situation is, like, I don't want you to think that you can't run to the cross and lay everything there, because that's what Beth did and that's what I did. And I pray that my son, I just had a baby a couple months ago, right? 9 months ago now. I pray that he never has to see his alcoholic mother. Okay, and that's why, like, I have to keep running to the Lord, because all it takes is one drink and I'm going to be back in it. Okay, right now I have 5 years sober, but all it takes is one drink and I'm back there. So we talked about some heavy stuff. I just want you to know, like, this is the place for you. Beth is here. I'm here. Like, we're all here because we're broken, not because we have our lives together and there's a pretty little bow and a happy ending. It's like we're still figuring it out, and that's why we're here. Okay. As y'all know, I'm the youth minister here. Brianne, sorry, I maybe should have introduced myself, but some of you already know me, so that's cool. I'm just going to talk about 2 saints real quick. As you prepare for confirmation, one of the things you have to do is you have to pick a confirmation saint. And that's a saint that maybe you, like, identify with in some regard, or maybe you find something about their story fascinating, or they're the patron saint for sports, and you're like, I love sports, sports is life, whatever. Like, you can pick your saint for whatever reason, but we do ask that, like, you do a little bit of research and not just, like, pick a random name on a list, okay? So I'm going to talk about 2 saints real quick here. The first one is my girl, Saint Elizabeth Ann Seton. Now, here's something cool that you didn't know. She was the first native-born American to be canonized in the Catholic Church. So out of all the saints, Saint Elizabeth Ann Seton was actually the first American who was born in America to become a saint. So that's cool. So here's her story. She grew up in, like, upper class New York, high society type of stuff, right? She was a prolific reader. She loved reading, and that included the Bible. She began to, like, read the Bible and say, like, wow, like, I'm receiving so much instruction and wisdom and insight from it. And so she was reading the Bible. She loved scriptures. But her life started to get a little messy, right? Her mom died when she was, like, pretty young. And then she, like, meets this guy who she falls madly in love with. He's wealthy as well. And so they move, like, onto Wall Street, New York, high class, fashionable home. But then his dad dies. And so the business gets handed to him. So now they're trying to run this business. And the business is not going very well. The business ends up tanking. They have to declare bankruptcy. Okay, so now Elizabeth and her husband are like, ugh, this is not good. So they move to Italy. And when they move there, her husband becomes sick and he dies. Okay, so now she's there, their business failed, they declared bankruptcy, her husband's dead, her mom's dead, her father-in-law's dead. Like, she's in a pretty desperate situation. You could say she's in turmoil, right? But she doesn't give up. She falls in love with the Catholic Church. She falls in love with the Lord. And so she decides that even though all these bad things have happened to her, she's not going to turn her back on God, because something deep down inside of her says that maybe the church has some answers. And she was searching. So she comes back to the States, okay, and she ends up establishing the first free Catholic school in America. So she establishes a school. And then at some point she decides, you know what, I'm not going to remarry. I'm just going to have vows of chastity, poverty, and obedience. And so she takes these vows. But then she gets tuberculosis, which is, by the way, is the same thing that her husband died from. So she gets tuberculosis. Now she's sick, which back then it was a pretty serious thing. But she keeps working. She doesn't even care that she's sick. She keeps turning to the Lord, saying, how can I give? How can I love? And she opens up 2 orphanages. She opens up another school. She's doing all this incredible stuff. And for the last 3 years of her life, as she was sick and suffering, something deep inside of her knew that she was going to die. She was aware of it. But it says that she gave her life with great joy. She knew she was going to die. But she gave her life with great joy. She continued. She wasn't like, oh man, I'm going to die. This is terrible. She just continued to love. And she ended up dying at the young age of 46. Okay. That was St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. Phenomenal. Let's talk about St. Martin de Porres. St. Martin de Porres was born in Peru. Okay, so the story was taking place in America. We're going to rewind a couple hundred years to the 1500s and be in Peru. Okay. Martin was born as the illegitimate son of like a Spanish gentleman and a native African Panamanian. So someone from Panama, okay? Illegitimate son. In other words, they weren't married. It was not a thing. So he's born and they're considered, and back then, like it was a big deal. If you were illegitimate, like everyone knew, okay? So at a young age, his noble Spanish father, because he had an illegitimate son, was like, I'm out, bye. He abandoned him and his mother and his younger sister. So now Martin's growing up with his mom and his sister, no dad. He's trying to figure out, how am I going to provide for my mom and my sister? How am I going to take, because I don't want to bail on them like my dad bailed on me. So he starts to go to school. But then he's like, no, like I need to make money. So he goes to like barber school, like cutting hair and stuff. So he learns how to cut hair. Well, as he grew older, he got a lot of ridicule because he was a mixed race, right? He was part native African-American, black, Panamanian mix, and then Spanish, which back then was like European. So they would maybe consider that white in our terms. But he was mixed, and so he got a lot of hate for it. And by law in Peru, Africans or Indians were not allowed to become legitimate religious. So if he wanted to be a monk, right? He wanted to be a priest, and he was not allowed to, simply because of his race. It was actually a law, okay? So he's running into all these issues, but St. Martin never gave up. He wasn't like, oh man, well, God must hate me, or, oh man, I'll go do something else. He's like, no, I still love God. He's in this rough situation, one of turmoil, and he chooses joy. So he's like, okay, they won't let me become a priest like I want to be, so I'm just going to continue to serve. So what he ends up doing is he goes to one of the Dominican monasteries, and he's like, hey, I know you won't let me join because of my race. He's like, but can I volunteer? Like, I'll do all the jobs y'all don't want to do. And so they're like, yeah, well, since you're, black or whatever, we're going to make you do all these terrible things. And so they like gave him all the jobs nobody wanted, like cleaning toilets and sweeping the floors and taking care of sick people. And he did it with joy. And never once did he hold a grudge. Never once did he say, hey, this isn't right. He knew it wasn't right. But he wanted to serve God, and so he did it with joy. So at some point, after he had been working there for a while, cleaning, and then he started cutting hair because he had the trade of being a barber. He started doing that. At some point, they realized, like, all right, this guy's not so bad. And so they kind of let him in. They still don't let him become a priest like he wanted to be, but they give him a habit so he can at least look like some of the monks do. But once he got in, people started picking on him. A lot of people there started mocking him. Now, the people who were there, for the record, were all like professed religious brothers. Okay, so these are the holy people, and they're making fun of him for his mixed race and for his illegitimacy. Okay, so he's still running into issues, even though now he's finally in. He's running into issues, but he chooses joy. And he continues to serve. Now, what ends up happening is they say, all right, well, we're going to make you go work in the infirmary, so go work with all the sick people, because then you'll get sick and not us. And so he goes to do that, and he does it well. And he continues to take care of people regardless of their race. He didn't care if they were, slaves and black and like mixed race, or he didn't care if they were the Spanish noblemen. He took care of everyone that he ran into. He also, in that time though, as he was taking care of people, they started to notice that there were some like pretty miraculous healings and like cures that were happening. And so they're like, whoa, like what's going on here? So they started to notice that, and they allowed him to volunteer more and kind of do more jobs. They still, though, never let him take on the full role like he wanted to of being a priest, being a fully professed Dominican. At some point, so a epidemic breaks out in Lima, Peru, and a lot of the friars got sick. The same people who were making fun of him, the same people who were treating him poorly, all of a sudden they're sick now. And he decides to take care of them, risking his own health, because chances are he was going to catch it and die too. But he set it aside, and again, he chose that joy, and he decided to serve, and he did not let hatred fill his heart, but he loved these men, these same men who bullied him and didn't let him do something that he should have been able to do. He loved them through it, and he did take care of them. And at some point, when he was 60 years old, he did become ill. He got fevers, tremors, chills, and got sick. And he was actually sick for a while, almost an entire year, in agonizing pain before he died. Okay, so these are our two saints. Saint Elizabeth Ann Seton over here in America is setting up schools, orphanages, even though she came from a rough situation. You have Saint Martin de Porres in Lima, Peru, loving, serving, and just giving himself to people. These are two people, two great examples of saints who were in situations that were challenging, and they chose to love. They chose joy. They chose not to turn their back on God just because they were going through something tough. And I think this ties in so beautifully with tonight's message, and what we want you to know is, like, you might be going through some of the hardest times of your life so far. You might feel like this is it. Now, I don't know. Maybe it's going to get better. Maybe it's going to get worse. I'm not sure. Because when I was your age, I'm like, my life can't get any worse than it is in high school. I remember thinking that. I was like, this is as bad as it's going to get. Y'all, it got so much worse after high school. But here's the thing. When I look back now, I see how God was present through it all. Even when it got ugly, even when it got bad, even when everyone else had left me. Because remember, I was the addict. I was the one treating other people like crap. I was the one pushing everyone away. I was the one using people, manipulating people, lying to people, saying awful things to people. That was me. And there were people in my life, like Beth, who loved me. People in my life, like my mother, for example. She saw me spiraling out of control, choosing alcohol over everything else, choosing it over my job, over my future, over my education, over my family. It was number one in my life, and my mom continued to love me. But the reason my mom continued to love me, if you ask her now, she's actually an addictions counselor now, and she's a therapist. But if you ask her now, how could you love your daughter when she was just going crazy like that, when she was doing all those terrible things, when she was using you and manipulating the family and destroying the home? How could you still love her? She would tell you one thing. She would say, because of God. That's it. When we say that you guys should love people, y'all, it's hard, okay? We need God to give us the strength to love people, because in this day and age, it's hard to love others, especially people who are different than us, especially people who maybe mock us for being Catholic, maybe people who did us dirty first. I don't want to love you if you did that to me first. But people spit in his face, and he loved them. They killed him after beating him up, after stripping him naked and making fun of him and mocking him by giving him a crown. They're like, oh, you think you're a king? Here's your crown. And from the cross, as he cried out with his last breaths, choking on his own blood, he said, Father, forgive them, because they don't know what they're doing. That's love. So no matter where you're at in your situation, no matter what it looks like, I want you to know that you can run to the cross, because nobody knows suffering and turmoil like him. But also nobody knows hope and joy and love and victory like him. I didn't think I'd ever get sober. I really didn't. I was pretty sure I would die drinking. I ended up hospitalized several times. A lot of people thought I was going to die drinking. It wasn't just me. But by the grace of God, he carried me through. And I'm here today. And I want you to know that he wants to carry you too. And maybe your problem isn't as serious as that. You're like, whoa, okay, you guys, y'all got a lot going on, but my life's not that crazy. But if you're holding on to any sort of resentment or hatred or malice in your heart, that can fester like a wound. And it can turn into anger, or it can turn into isolation. It can turn into all sorts of things. Okay, maybe you don't say mean things to people's faces, but what do your comments look like online when you're anonymous? Right? Or when people don't know it's you. So we all need God's mercy. We all need his grace. Okay, I have a few announcements that we have to go over. So a couple things. Number one, if you're like, okay, I forgot Valentine's Day was coming up, but it's coming up. I know a lot of you don't care. I'm married. I also don't care, because when you get married, you're like, does this really matter? I think when I was in middle school, Valentine's Day was really important, but then as I got older, I'm like, I don't know how important this is. Anyways, if you're like, what am I going to do on Valentine's Day? Ladies, the diocese actually was like, hey, ladies, if you're not doing anything on Valentine's Day, we're going to have a fun little get-together. It's called A Date with Jesus. And you're like, wow, that sounds lame. No, it's going to be really great, and it's going to be awesome. You can totally partake on that. It's February 14th, obviously Valentine's Day, from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Co-Cathedral Center. If you want more information on that, hit me up. I'm happy to give you all the details, but it is a fun little thing for high school age girls. Sorry, guys. Maybe you can get a date with someone else. But ladies, you have a date with Jesus. You're all invited. The other thing, number 2, is for those of you who don't know, we have a youth group. Did some of y'all know we have a youth group? You're like, okay, a couple people. Shout out to the 7 people that know about our youth group. Here's the thing. I have here $10 to Chick-fil-A. I'm going to give it out right now. Someone here is going to walk away with $10. I know what you're thinking. That's not enough for Chick-fil-A. Y'all, I work for the church, okay? My budget is I can only do so much. If it could have been $50, I would have done you $50 at Chick-fil-A. That's too much power, though. Okay, so we're just going to do 10. Here's what you need to do. If you're like, hey, I kind of want to win some Chick-fil-A money, you can pull out your phone right now, only if you're going to follow us on Instagram, and I'm going to give away $10 to one of our new followers. So I wrote it out because we don't have a screen. We're in a church. But I'm also going to spell it for you. Okay, so it's at Saint, so that's S-T, Bart's, with an S, Crew. That's Crew, C-R-U. Give us a follow. And you're like, wow, she's that desperate for follows. No. Okay, let me back up. The reason I want y'all to follow us on Instagram is because that's where we remind people, hey, we have youth group tonight, and we even tell you what the topic is, or maybe some of the things we're gonna do. So pull out your phone right now, give us a follow at St. Bart's Crew, and I'm gonna open my phone right now, and I'm gonna pick someone at random to walk away with $10 in Chick-fil-A monies. Anyways, so the whole point, though, is for you guys to know what we're doing. Because maybe right now you're sitting there and you're like, hey, I want to go to youth group. I want to play some weird games, eat some bomb snacks, and learn about Jesus. And I want to bring a friend. But then what's going to happen is because you're young and you're super swamped at school, in a week, you're going to forget all about it. So if you follow us on Instagram, in a week, you're going to see a little post and you're going to be like, oh, yeah, that youth group thing is tonight. So let me go see here. Let me go pick a new follower. We got a few. Wow, thank you, everyone. And I'm going to pick someone and give it away right now. So let's see our new followers. Okay, I was like, please don't have any inappropriate names I have to read out loud. Okay, so our winner is going to be, okay, let me read it. So it's K_NOV4. Does anyone know? You're like, is that me? Let me read it. Do y'all know if that's you? I can't tell. I can't even tell. There's a picture of a sunset. No? No one? Someone here just followed us. Or it's, 4NG3L. You have like a really crazy username. No one? Wow. Okay, well, I'm going to pick someone else then. Okay, so this person, Abe Leddit. Abe? All right. Look at this. $10, dude. That can at least get you what? Some nuggets, right? Right? Okay, congrats. Everyone give him a round of applause. Look at that. He followed us. He knew his username. That other person doesn't know. Or they're embarrassed. Why would you be embarrassed to win $10 at Chick-fil-A? I don't know. It's God's restaurant. So anyways, okay. So follow us. That's how you're going to remember that there's youth group. That's how you're going to know what we're going to be talking about, maybe what kind of games we're playing. And so that's just a really good way. If you're like, I don't have an Instagram, you actually don't need an Instagram to check Instagram. Did you know that? I didn't know that until like a few years ago when I deleted my Instagram, and then I was like, oh, I can still stalk people, but not if they're private. Okay. You can actually Google Instagram and then St. Bart's Crew, and you can view our feed. We're not a private account, so anyone can view the feed. You can even go to the website. It's linked on our St. Bart's website too. Anyways, because if you're like, well, I want to know what y'all are going to talk about, or I want to know, but I don't have an Instagram, you can still view it, okay? Okay, cool. Last announcement. So, some of you missed a few encounter sessions. You missed either the first one or the second one we had way back in September and October. If you missed it, you were supposed to complete a makeup assignment, and some of you still have not done that. So, I have to talk to you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read a bunch of names. If I read your name, you need to come up and see me because I have a paper for you, and we got to have a quick chat. After I read the names, I'm going to close us in prayer, and then I'm going to dismiss the pews from the first. We're going to dismiss like in an orderly fashion, right? Because it's COVID, and we don't want to all like crowd and whatever. We're going to dismiss from the front pew, like going back. Okay, single file. But if I read your name, you're not going to dismiss. You're going to come up here, and you're going to see me. Does that make sense? Everyone's clear on that? Okay. Here are the names. So we have Valeria Rodriguez, Nadia Leal, Emiliano Leal, Vivian Rodriguez, and Iman Langen. Then my other names are Leonardo Arrieta, Christian Barrios, Eder Beltran, Dana Hernandez, Luis Ibarra, Crystal Jaramillo, Iman Langen, and Bethsaida Ortiz. Now, actually, Bethsaida, that last one, I think I got your assignment like a few days ago, so let me cross you out. If I called your name, you're not going to dismiss. You're going to come up to the front, okay? So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to close us in prayer. Yes. Yes. Okay. Clipboards. Where are my clipboards at? Nellie's back there. She can grab the 2 clipboards. If you did not sign in, you're going to get like emails from me asking, like doing all this. Please make sure you sign in. Just make our lives easier because there's been several times where people are like, I forgot to sign in or I never signed in. Signing in is how we know you were here. Otherwise, we're going to assume you weren't here. Okay? And you guys were all here, so get your credit. Make sure you sign in. So the clipboards are here. If you did not sign in, you need to see Nellie before you leave. You need to get that clipboard and sign it. The other thing is our next encounter is a month from now, March 6th. It's really easy to remember because what's today? February 6th. So March 6th, the same exact, it's also a Sunday. It's the same time, same place. It's also the number 6. We're going to be here. Now, because we'll be here, there won't be youth group that night like tonight, but normally youth group is on Sunday nights at the same time in the youth building, okay? Just so y'all know. So you're going to come back here March 6th. All right, let's go ahead. We'll close in prayer, and then I'm going to kind of dismiss evenly here. If I called your name, remember, please come up and see me. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, we love you. We bring our messy lives to you. We bring our brokenness to you, the chaos, the confusion, the frustration, the anger, the shame, the sadness. We bring every part of who we are to the foot of the cross. We bring it there so it can encounter your brokenness, so it can be united to what you did. Because, Lord, when we look at the cross, we see that you redeemed the whole world through that turmoil, through that brokenness, through that struggle. You did something incredible. We trust that you are doing something incredible in our lives as well. Even when we don't feel it, even when we don't see it, we know that you have plans for us. We know that you love us. Help us to fall more deeply in love with you. We ask all of this in your most holy name. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.